It's time for some election results, and I wanted to go over them with you, and also something that is developing. And I see this happening at every election. It's very concerning, and it has to do with the chain of custody, or the supposedly chain of custody of our votes, and how many votes, like kind of all of it. It's real odd. We'll get to that in a little bit, but first let's go over some of the results, shall we? Some of the big, well, first of all, is the turnout. The turnout's looking to be about 16%, and I'm looking at my laptop here, and which is dismal. I mean, it's really pretty terrible. Now, granted, it's an off year, it's a non-presidential general election, but still, I mean, it's just people just aren't engaged, and our constitutional republic and these democratic elements, such as voting, are super important. I mean, we have to be engaged. We have to be, involved in the process. I hear many people who say, I've given up on it. Really? So what's the alternative? So what are you going to do? Are you going to move away? If you give up, move away, guess what? It's, more states will fall to leftist, Marxist, anti-constitutional kind of, politicians and political ideologies. And what do we, it'll just be a few states then against the other state. It's not a strategy. You can't give up. You can't. So, sorry, a little bit of a mini rant there. All right, so let's take a look at those results. So, Bauman, Van Gelder, Bauman's going to win, unfortunately. He's got a solid win. Victoria Ferrer held her strong primary showing and beat Dan Dingman, even though Dingman got Philip Johnson, the outgoing mayor, to do his dirty work for him, to try to smear Victoria. That backfired. And then Overholser is going to win as well in Battleground. Hogan is going to be the mayor there. Camus overall, pretty much the Democratic left-leaning candidates pretty much won handily. Camus has got to get their act together in the sense of conservatives or Republicans or, liberty-loving people who, want smaller government, less taxes, things like that. However you want to label it, Republican, conservative, it just doesn't have as much meaning anymore. Really what it comes down to is liberty and, people who believe in smaller government. Republicans used to, but unfortunately a great majority of them don't believe in smaller government. And, forget Trumpism, just put that aside. How about just Reagan Republicans? I would take that in the sense of smaller government, less taxes, those kind of concepts. And even the Republicans that we have that are in office in Clark County, many of them don't fight for that. Some do, many don't. And all right, there's another free rant for you. But Camus has got to, they're conservative, whatever, however you want to label them, candidates. They've got to figure out their strategy. All right. The other kind of thing, in La Center, Myrna is going to be elected in there. Congratulations to her. Excuse me. And, the other kind of interesting one that I was watching, so a lot of unopposed candidates, which is it just shouldn't be. There's just no reason for that. And what that end up, looking at only 16% voter turnout, That's a part of it. Voters get their ballots, they take a look at this, they go, gosh, for example, in Richfield, I only had 3 races that had, that my vote mattered. I still voted, but that's when it kind of dawned on me that, it's kind of a voter suppression is having all these races that are unopposed. Vancouver, council's a joke in the sense of the only one that really had a decent had opposed, and they're both Democrats, Leah Perkle and Sarah Fox. So anyways, so going on, but the big shocker of the night, the big news was Gary Wilson. So Gary Wilson was going against, this is David and Goliath, kind of stuff where Victoria Bradford was the 20-year school board, supported by WEA and the teachers unions. She's the good old boy of the teachers unions and whatnot. And Gary Wilson came in, who, if you don't know Gary's been going to school boards and bringing attention to, the lack of standards, the lack of results, what's going on in their school libraries and all kinds of stuff. Basically parents' rights kind of situation, putting that first, and bam, he's got 52.59% to Victoria Bradford has 46.99, so 47%. That's a 5% lead. And with outstanding. Now, granted, I go back to this ballots issue that, so last night, when I first saw it, there was only 20,000 votes left to be counted. Later in the evening, and maybe I missed it, maybe it was 23,000 and I just rounded it in my brain. I'm trying to get confirmation out there that it was 20,000. But anyways, later in the night, it said 23,000. And now, so they, by their own vote counts, they've picked up 452 ballots this morning, and they've raised the outstanding ballots to 31,000. Let me pull that up here. So 31,200. So they're getting more specific. But when you deduct the ones that they picked up today, so 31,200 minus 4,452 from, let me make sure I'm pulling it up correctly. Yeah, 4,452 were picked up today. When you minus that, when you combine those totals, plus minus 23,000 that they were reporting outstanding, it leaves, 3,000, I think 700 some odd ballots that just showed up that were unaccounted for. Now, when I've looked into this in previous elections, Kathy Garber, the elections manager, just explains that they gather these ballots in bags the night of, so last night, they collected all their ballots, but they clearly didn't count. Most of the ballots that were outstanding were late returns. So probably, I don't know when's the last pickup, but as in the elections office, but when they look at that, so they just put them in bags, which is crazy to me, that they don't actually count them that night and give a chain of custody count, saying we have in our custody X amount of ballots, and that should be a precise number. And that doesn't happen. She told me that they guess. They guess. They take a look at these bags and they estimate how many they think are left in there. That's what she's told me why these numbers are off, because they're off now by over 3,000. I think it's 700 ballots that have just poof, that have just appeared. Again, they say, well, that's because, they're just guessing how many are in these bags. So keep an eye on this, folks, because over the years, when I've seen this number changes. Now, as in the first 48 hours, it changes, and then as the ballots trickle in, when they get smaller, like they picked up 4,000 ballots from the post office today, this morning, that number should go down considerably, and this number won't. But 3,700 some odd ballots, just kind of like their numbers are off, and it's an unacceptable practice that really has the appearance, at minimum, like the appearance that ballots are just showing up out of thin air. Granted, they've got an explanation, blah, 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 but it's like, that's just no way to do it. So anyways, going back to the results, the big shocker of the night was Gary Wilson knocking off Victoria Bradford. And what it shows you in the candidates that did win, like for our Holzer, Myrna, hard work pays off. Hard work pays off. Having a sharp message, having discipline to stay on that message, and going out there, engaging voters, canvassing, super important. That's why Victoria did so well. That's why Myrna did so well. They're out there canvassing. And Gary, parents' rights, breaking it down to common sense topics, that moderate, low information, low disengagement or low engagement voters can go, yeah, that makes sense. Nothing too radical, like, oh, okay, yeah, parents should be calling the shots in schools, things like that. So we'll keep an eye on these results. I don't expect anything big changes, like, for example, Gary Wilson's lead, 5%. I mean, if that somehow flipped, boy, that would be shocking. That would, considering how many votes, but like getting back to it, if that number keeps increasing and these votes, outstanding ballots keeps going up, right now we're at a plus 3,000, whatever, 3,700 ballot increase that just weren't accounted for last night. We'll keep an eye on that, but I don't think that anything like that's going to happen. There is a Richfield race that's really close, 13 ballots. So if you live in Richfield, it's the position 3 city council. So Lee Wells is up by 13 votes over Mark Tyler. So that will probably be the biggest one that has potential of flipping. I don't see really any other races that are super close or could be a factor. So that's it, folks. Get engaged, stay engaged, and let's keep an eye on these votes that are appearing, shall we? Take care.